Part 98. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 971. Chapter 968 Teleportation. The giant ship had been lying dormant for tens of thousands of years in the dark trench. The hull and exposed keel of the giant ship were covered with seaweed and sand. It looked like ruins on the seabed. Xiaopingyan didn't know how the giant ship sank here, because from the appearance, there were two huge gaps tens of meters long between the bow and the hull of the giant ship. The gaps were very neat and clean. Cutting the metal of the giant ship, especially the gap in the middle of the giant ship, which almost cut the giant ship in two. This huge metal ship looked like an eggplant that had been chopped off with a knife. Hundreds of millions of tons of seawater poured into the interior of the giant ship from those two gaps, eventually causing the giant ship to sink. Xiaopingyan was able to determine that these two gaps were sword marks at a glance. Judging from the subtle local features of the gaps, Xiaopingyan made an astonishing discovery, because the person who caused the gap was not the sword of the emperor. Similar techniques, but like swordsmanship in martial arts, from the incomplete gap, with Xiaopingyan's ability to master the combination of magic and martial arts, he can still faintly feel a trace of sword intent and evil spirit remaining in the gap. This sword intent and evil spirit, just like magnetized metal, no matter how many years have passed, for an expert, you can feel its due breath. And it is precisely because of this residual sword intent and evil spirit that almost no marine life dares to get too close around this giant ship sunk in the trench. All the luminous fish and shrimps on the surrounding seabed were far away from this giant ship. Even the strange fish he was riding at the moment did not dare to get too close to this giant ship. It's strange. The two gaps on this giant ship should have been left by the sword skill of combining magic and martial arts. Aren't the abilities of summoners in this world restricted? They can't even use flying skills. How can there be summons? Can the master sink such a giant ship with the combination of martial arts and martial arts? Xiaopingyan looked at the giant ship in front of him and murmured to himself. If he can use the secret skill of combining magic and martial arts, it will not be difficult for him to cut off this giant sword with two swords. He can also do it, but the problem is that the abilities of summoners in this world are actually limited by laws. What is the secret technique that can break through the restrictions and use magic and martial arts? Could it be a god? Unfortunately, there is not much information about the land of the divine seal left by the god of trickery to Xiaopingyan, so Xiaopingyan doesn't know what's going on, but anyway, this giant ship in front of him gave Xiaopingyan a wake-up call. In the land of the divine seal, there are demigods or gods who can easily perform secret techniques that combine magic and martial arts. The strange fish did not dare to enter the interior of the sunken giant ship, and the body of the strange fish was too long and too big, making it inconvenient to enter. Driven by curiosity, Xiaopingyan simply let the strange fish wait outside, and he swam in through the gap in the giant ship, wanting to see what was in the giant ship. Inside the giant ship, there are cabins one after another. The entire giant ship is wrapped in a layer of dust. It really looks like an antique in the sea. There are no scary scenes inside the giant ship. There are no corpses or anything else. The marine life seemed extraordinarily quiet. After walking around the giant ship for a moment, Xiaopingyan discovered the crew members on the giant ship. They were standard humanoid metal puppets, which had been rusted and turned into iron lumps. This giant ship looks like it is transporting cargo, but the several large warehouses inside it are empty and there is nothing. I don't know if it has been taken away or if it was originally empty. After wandering around in the giant ship, Xiaopingyan, who had gained nothing, swam out from the gap in the giant ship. He looked at the giant ship and, unwilling to gain anything, clapped it with his hands. Taking a picture of the hull of the giant ship, the thick steel plate made a silent banging sound under Xiaopingyan's palm. It's a pity, there is nothing. Xiaopingyan shook his head and was about to leave, but suddenly, his eyes suddenly lit up, he thought of something, and patted his head again, Stupid, this giant, although there is nothing in the ship, isn't this giant ship just a ready resource? To build such a giant ship, among other things, it requires at least millions of tons of high-quality steel. Lingxiao City is still short of iron ore and copper ore. If we bring this giant ship to Lingxiao City and let the craftsmen in Lingxiao City divide it bit by bit, we will have the steel, and it should be enough for Lingxiao City to use for a long time. Thinking of this, Xiaopingyan suddenly became happy. He immediately turned around, touched the giant ship with his hand, and then released his divine power to wrap the giant ship. Half a minute later, with Xiaopingyan's low roar, "Get it," the giant ship suddenly disappeared and was received by Xiaopingyan in the open space outside the workshop where the craftsmen gathered in Lingxiao City. As soon as the giant ship disappeared, the trench suddenly became filled with mud and the water became turbid. Xiaopingyan called out to the strange fish and rode on its head. The strange fish swung its body, rolled up the water, and immediately carried it with it. Xiaopingyan left here quickly. Do you know any other strange places? Keep taking me to see. Xiaopingyan continued to pass the order to the strange fish. The strange fish also understood Xiaopingyan's meaning and continued to lead Xiaopingyan towards a place quickly. More than a few hours later, the strange fish took Xiaopingyan to a place in the sea. Tens of thousands of meters deep, the bottom of the water here was full of gravel. The water vapor was transpiring and bubbling. The sea water seemed to be boiled. Likewise, a meteorite that keeps changing colors sits quietly on the bottom of the sea. Holy shit, what is that? Xiaopingyan was stunned for a moment when he saw the meteorite. The meteorite was the size of a house, with pits on the surface. It was burning on the bottom of the sea. Countless cold sea water poured in from around it, but it could not completely cool down the meteorite. How long has this meteorite been burning here? Xiaopingyan asked the strange fish. The strange fish has a vague concept of time. The message from the strange fish is that it has seen such a thing here since it was a child. From its childhood until now, the strange fish has experienced more than 700 days when the sea was frozen. That's more than 700 years. Xiaopingyan really doesn't know if there is any meteorite in the world that can burn in such sea water for more than 700 years. This thing seems to be unusual. The weight of this meteorite seems to be thousands of tons. It is very heavy, and the temperature of its flame is very high, but these are not problems for Xiaopingyan. Without saying a word, Xiaopingyan took the thing directly to Lingxiao City and placed it underground in the Lingxiao City craftsman's workshop, which just provided a fire source for the workshop. The strange fish took Xiaopingyan to find two useful things in succession. Xiaopingyan was in a good mood. Then, he asked the strange fish to continue taking him to see strange places. This time, the strange fish took Xiaopingyan and ran a little far. The strange fish took Xiaopingyan and submerged into the hidden ocean currents on the bottom of the sea. The strange fish shuttled quickly across the bottom of the sea like a glider in the ocean currents. After a few days, the strange fish took Xiaopingyan and had traveled tens of thousands of kilometers on the bottom of the sea. The fish took Xiaopingyan out of the ocean current, and then the strange fish took Xiaopingyan to a huge cave in the nearby undersea mountain range. Xiaopingyan was in the cave, reading a book. I saw a strange space teleportation array. The space teleportation array is about 100 square meters in size. It is a huge metal array plate hidden in a cave under the water. The teleportation array is also inlaid with pieces of divine crystals. Judging from the environment around the teleportation array, this teleportation array here is simple and dignified, and I am afraid it has a history of at least tens of thousands of years. Once this teleportation array is activated, it will be teleported to an unknown place. Looking at the teleportation array, Xiaopingyan hesitated for a moment. He was trying to find a place with people to go ashore. This teleportation array seemed to be an option. However, he had no idea where the teleportation array would be sent. Is it some dangerous place? Xiaopingyan thought about it carefully. always thinking that Kui Hao's prediction for him should be fine, so he gritted his teeth, came to the teleportation array, carefully used the transformation technique to change his appearance, and then only then did he activate the divine crystal on the teleportation array. A few seconds later, the mysterious runes on the teleportation array lit up one by one, and then with a flash of light, Xiaopingyan, who was standing in the middle of the teleportation array, disappeared in the undersea cave. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 972. Chapter 969 God War. This feeling of space transfer is no longer unfamiliar to Xiaopingyan. Colorful lights and shadows are changing in front of his eyes, and the surrounding space is twisted and messy. It seems like lightning and a long and contradictory sense of time intertwined. At this time, Xiaopingyan just counted his heartbeats silently to confirm the passage of time. When his heartbeat reached the 37th time, the magical scene and feeling in front of him disappeared. Xiaopingyan had been transported to a strange place. To be precise, it was teleported into the high-altitude clouds and fell rapidly. I go. In just a short moment, Xiaopingyan had fallen hundreds of meters like a falling rock. His entire body had passed through the thin clouds in the sky and appeared in the sky. Because of this, he was able to see what's underneath the clouds. That scene shocked Xiaopingyan. Under the clouds, there was a huge plain with ravines and rocks everywhere. There was no vegetation on this plain, and the entire plain was like a huge stone. Tens of thousands of meters below him, there was a tower that stretched across the plain. Mountain range, no, that is a magnificent great wall, like it was cast by gods, built on the mountain range, like a giant gate, guarding one end of the plain. The great wall was too long. Inside, the long city wall that is thousands of meters high stretches for tens of thousands of kilometers, like the end of the earth. At this moment, on this vast plain of boulders, some black spots were moving. Xiaopingyan looked and saw some strange beasts leaping and running under the ground, rushing towards the long city wall. These running there are no strange beasts like the white leopard with electric light under its body, which can jump hundreds of meters in one jump, the Pegasus with two wings that runs underground while spreading its wings to glide, and the bull with flames on its feet. The ground shook as he ran, and with every step he took on the ground, a ball of flames would burst out from the ground. With the blessing of the flames, the figure of this bull was looming, and down the huge ditch 1,000 meters long, this bull in the blink of an eye, he can cross over. There are no huge birds in the sky spreading their wings and flying towards the Great Wall, no eagles, no phoenixes, no pterosaurs, all kinds of things. There were probably no less than 70 of those strange beasts. Looking at them from the perspective of a world, I knew that these strange beasts were transformed into demigod summoners. Just when the Wanjis were surprised, a giant white eagle with a wingspan of less than 87 meters flew past 1,000 meters away from the side of the Wanjis. The giant eagle also turned its head and looked at the free fall. The Wanjizu glanced at him. This look was very human, as if he was looking at a silly bird. He did not say hello to the Wanjizu, nor did he attack Xie Xingyu. He just ignored Xie Xingyu's existence and flew towards the Great Wall. Past. The hearts of all the people in the world were moved. As soon as they got up, they transformed into a crane in the air. As soon as they spread their wings, they chased down the giant eagle in a moment. Following the giant eagle, it also flew towards the Great Wall. When they were less than a kilometer away from the magnificent wall of the Great Wall, the various birds in the world and the various strange beasts running underground all flashed with brilliance and turned into human appearances. There were about 70 people, neither female nor male, with different descriptions. The huge white eagle followed by all the worlds just now turned into a strong man wearing a white cloak and a wolf-skin hat, and this head with 2 feet. The flaming bull turned into a thin old man with a clear face and 2 small copper earrings under his ears. Those people did not say hello. Before revealing their true colors, they landed on their feet one by one and continued walking towards the magnificent Great Wall. At that time, Xingyu discovered that the magnificent Great Wall mountain seemed to be some kind of metal. Within the walls of the Great Wall, huge runes were faintly flowing, bringing a weak pressure like the arrival of a god. It is coming towards you like Mount Tai, taking your breath away. The Great Wall and mountains are the work of summoners and demigods. Only gods can create such majestic and terrifying architectural miracles. Xingyu followed the team, also talking, but just walked towards the city wall with these people. When I was almost 100 meters away from the city wall, I raised my head. The top of the city wall seemed to be under the sky. This huge city wall looked like a giant looking down at the people above. What are they doing in Wolong territory? A deep voice came from under the city wall. You are the Sanshan clan from the Biun Sea. Among the team, a white-faced man who had just turned into a white leopard raised his face and spoke in a bitter and hoarse voice. The war between gods swept across all worlds, and even Beishi Mountain can't help it. Fortunately, there is no place in the land of the divine seal that cannot be involved in the matter. In the following days, the small army of the dominant demon god has not yet approached the Biun Sea, forcing the Sanshan clan in the Biun Sea to surrender. The remaining Sanshan will either drink. If you take the blood of the demon god, you will become a minion of the dominant demon god from now on, or you will have to be slaughtered. You wait for the death battle to break out, use the teleportation formation to come here, and ask for shelter. They should know the rules of Wolong territory. There is a military town outside, and relevant people must enter, came the voice below. You know, the person who spoke was an old man with a thin figure and a clear face, wearing 2 small copper earrings under his ears. The old man raised his head and looked at the bottom of the city wall, with 2 clear tears in his eyes. Biting, he said bitterly, my wife who has been with you for 700 years has not yet died on the blade of the dominator demon god's small army. Her body and soul are destroyed. You are not here to join the army. You voluntarily give up. The identity of the god was that the former lord of heavenly Dao was Xiaoping'an, and he voluntarily joined the small army under the lord of heavenly Dao to fight for the world of heavenly Dao, and he was in conflict with the dominant demon god. You are willing to join the small army of the Lord of Heaven. The Lord of Fengtian Dao is the Lord who interprets actions and pleases the gods. You are willing to join the small army of the Lord of Heavenly Dao, and the Lord of Heavenly Dao will be the Lord Xiaoping'an. The 70 young people spoke one after another. The information contained in those people's few words was very small. Everyone in the world thought that they were transported to that place and actually got mixed up with such a group of people by mistake. Who the Lord Demon God is naturally needless to say, and for Xingyu, this Lord who cannot compete with the Lord Demon God is actually completely unthinkable. Being able to come out there alive and in front of you is closely related to this master. The 70 or so people all expressed their positions in just a moment. Only Wang Zhu didn't speak yet, which seemed a little ordinary. The eyes of these people were all focused on Wang Zhu's body. Xingyu had a thought in his heart, and with a fierce expression on his face, he said those words naturally, are you willing to join the small army of the Lord of Heavenly Dao, and make the Lord of Heavenly Dao the honorable God of Xiaoping'an? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 973. Chapter 970 The Great Struggle. After Xiaoping'an also expressed his attitude loudly, those eyes staring at him withdrew again. 2 seconds later, the voice on the wall sounded. Compared with the coldness before, the voice was somewhat warmer now. Since you have decided to join us, I will let you enter the Wolong territory. I will open the city wall passage and you can come in. As soon as these words fell, the mountain wall in front of Xiaoping'an and the others began to move, like the bones and scales of a wriggling animal, squirming layer by layer, moving away layer by layer like building blocks, and then, in front of them, a smooth and deep passage leading to the back of the city wall was revealed. The other summoners saw that there was no hesitation and entered the passage one by one. Xiaoping was the last one and followed him in. As Xiaoping entered, the passage behind him began to squirm a little bit. Changed and closed again. The entire passage is about 2,000 meters long. When you reach the end of the passage behind you turns into a city wall. What appears in front of Xiaoping is a corner of a huge city. A man wearing light golden armor, 2 meters tall. Me, a man with a thick beard and an iron face stood at the end of the passage waiting for them. When the man saw Xiaoping and the others coming out, he didn't even bother to introduce himself. He just said to everyone, "Follow me," then turned and walked towards a tall tower-shaped building not far away. Xiaoping and others it also followed automatically. When you reach the top of the low tower, the door of the low tower opens automatically. In front of the door is a majestic small hall. The small hall is full of bright and shining purple, white, and white crystals. There is no low dome in the small hall. Somewhat similar to the temple of the secret mandala, there are flowing golden runes scattered all over the floor of the small hall and under the 7 surrounding walls and giant pillars. There is no sculpture of the 8-winged Peking in the small hall. The statue of Peking is floating in the air of the small hall, looking down at everyone in the small hall with sharp eyes. As everyone retreated, throughout the small hall, the metal boots of this woman's armor clicked on the ground of the small hall, making a crisp echo. This woman took everyone directly to the middle of the small hall, and stood right under the eyes of the statue of King Peng. Then she turned around, and everyone who followed me outside stopped one by one. "That's the Tower of Loyalty," Sister Qianmen said about that place. "It's used to detect whether there are spies sent by the Lord Demon God among them and whether they have been tampered with. That's the place that has not joined the way of heaven. The newcomers who dominate the small army must go through a test. They will stay there for the next day and wait until tomorrow. There will be no one to take them out and tell them what to do." After the woman finished speaking, her eyes swept under everyone's face, and then asked, "Is there any problem? Is there anyone who has no problem?" People like me seem to have known about that situation for a long time. There is no problem outside Bai Yunhai's belly. But I felt that if I asked at that time, I would look too different and eye-catching, so I didn't speak up. Seeing that everyone had no questions, the woman didn't say anything, took small steps directly, and left the small hall with the crisp echo of footsteps. As the woman left, the small door of the small hall closed automatically. Rise. The atmosphere in the small hall finally relaxed at that time. It was not so tense just now. I'm so tired. I finally arrived at Wolong territory. I can't take a good rest now. A man wearing a fox mask took a long breath, then waved his hand, and his divine power surged. But nothing was summoned, and no spells were released. "Hey, it's strange, why summon something?" The man murmured to himself, looked at his hands, and waved again. The same wave of divine power appeared under you again, but nothing was summoned either. "Blue Fox, it's all in vain. Outside is the Tower of Loyalty of the Lord of Heaven. All magic is forbidden there. The gods have to be high there. You just have to stay there for the next day." This wearing 2 small copper earrings under his ears, the old man with a thin figure and a slim face said lightly, then walked to a pillar in the small hall, leaned against the pillar, and sat cross-legged on the ground. Just closed his eyes. The rest of the group also relaxed at that time. They walked around the small hall in 2s and 8s, found a place to sit down, and rested quietly. Everyone there knew Zhang Mibin. When I saw others resting, I, like others, found a place to sit and waited patiently. This strong man wearing a white cloak and a wolf-skin hat walked towards Bianhai, sat down directly next to Bianhai, then took off a bronze gourd on his cloak, opened the mouth of the gourd, As soon as he raised his head, he started to drink. The strong aroma of wine with the fragrance of flowers spread out from the mouth of this man's gourd, attracting the attention of many people around him. The person's throat trembled and he swallowed secretly. The man drank a few sips of wine by himself, and let out a sigh of satisfaction. Then he put away the gourd again and wiped his mouth without any intention of sharing it with others. Then the woman in front of him used a pair of sharp looking at Zhang. He asked directly, "Your name is Gu Xinyi. What's his name? Have you seen him in Xiaopinggan in the future?" "Your name is Xuanhuan," Zhang said fiercely. "My appearance at this moment has changed again to the appearance of Xuanhuan. The woman behind my eyes seems to be doing what you want and is very forthright. You should talk to me by yourself. Chad, you are from Xiaopinggan. It is a coincidence that you met them inside today. It's strange. You said that Zhangmiban's Sanshan clan only has tens of thousands of people. If there are really no new people joining, you have been with Zhangmiban for 200 years and you can't even recognize him." Gu Xinyi looked astonished. "What happened to Xiaopinggan?" Bai Yunhai asked. "There will no longer be Xiaopinggan. Now Xiaopinggan, you are in the realm of death and have been completely destroyed." Gu Xinyi sighed, with a simple expression of sadness but no hatred on his face, and shook his head. "In the past, there was no Sanshan clan in the land of the Divine Seal. The Divine War has ended long ago. In that Divine War, two small masters fought against each other. The war swept through all the worlds and was never seen again. The history of the Sanshan clan in the land of the Divine Seal will also be ended, and the Sanshan clan will only disappear. You can choose one of 7, either join the side of the dominant demon god, or be killed by the side of the dominant demon god, and you can no longer stay out of the situation." A woman nearby also said loudly, "To join the army of the Overlord Demon God, you have to drink the divine blood of the Overlord Demon God. In the past, life and death were completely controlled by the Overlord Demon God. You became a stupid dog in the hands of others. There was no dignity at all. You came to that world to seek the opportunity to become a god. Yes, you are here to be slaves and cannon fodder for others, so you would rather join the side of the Lord of Heaven. In the past, you fought with the side of the Lord Demon to see who can kill whom," a bald woman nearby said fiercely. "It's wrong. You think so too, under the command of the dominant demon god, so what if you become a god in the future?" As the people around him started chatting, Bai Yunhai finally understood what was going on with the people behind him. With the end of the war in the divine world, the land of the divine seal closest to the divine realm was naturally involved in the divine war. Moreover, the scale of that divine war was completely the same as before, even smaller, and the war swept across the world. It cannot be said that there is no place in the entire land of divine seals that cannot be involved in the matter. The so-called Sanshan clan are actually those in the land of the divine seal who have always maintained a neutral attitude. They are either a group of weak demigods who have not joined the side of the dominant demon god or the side of the Lord of Heaven. The Sanshan clan has a long history and has a long history in the land of the divine seal. With tens of thousands of years of history, those weak demigods have always wanted to get involved in the war between the two little masters. They have always remained neutral and only wanted to seek their own way to become gods. But that time, the dominant demon god was even more tyrannical. Our wishes were shattered. The small army of the Lord Demon God had no attitude towards the Sanshan clan that time. Any group or demigod who joined the Lord Demon God's side would be eliminated. So at this moment, in the land of the Divine Seal, no one can be involved in the war. In the entire land of the Divine Seal, you have been deeply involved in the Divine War. The war between the demigods of the two small camps is still going on. Not fully enabled. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 974. As a demigod, it is very easy to stay in one place for a day. In this temple, except that you cannot use divine power and return to the secret mandala, there are no other restrictions for everyone. These powerful demigods who came from the White Cloud Sea were probably tired from escaping along the way. They meditated and rested in the temple, chatting and venting their emotions. The day passed quickly. For Xiaopinggan, even just sitting here and listening to what others said was very rewarding. He finally knew what the situation in the land of the Divine Seal was like now. This land of the Divine Seal has now become a battlefield for the battle between the two masters and their subordinates. Countless demigods have fallen in such a battle. The land of the Divine Seal is connected to the God realm, and there are countless vast territories in between that have become cruel battlefields. The armies of the two masters are fighting fiercely in these battlefields, and even the gods of both sides directly participate in the battle. The piece of information that surprised Xiaopinggan the most was that he learned from Guzinyi and others that in the land of the Divine Seal, a demigod strongman could actually fully restore his combat power and mobilize the power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth to combine magic and martial arts. Not only that, in the land of the Divine Seal, there are also many powerful secret techniques that can be practiced by demigods. These secret techniques are called divine techniques. As the name suggests, these divine techniques are secret techniques that can only be mastered by gods. It is one of the reasons why the gods are powerful. This secret skill is a new and powerful secret skill created by the fusion of magic and martial arts with certain summoning magic of the summoner. It has overwhelming power over ordinary demigods. The power level of the spiritual skills is completely above the unity of magic and martial arts, and it can destroy the world at any time. The 5 elements fist that Xiaopinggan mastered at the beginning was only equivalent to stepping into the basic threshold of mastering the divine skills, and all the demigods who entered the land of the Divine Seal had already condensed 99 divine bones. So these powerful demigods also mastered the way of combining magic and martial arts one by one. The secret skills that could only be mastered by a few top summoners in the world of god-killing insects have become indispensable skills for the powerful demigods in the land of the Divine Seal. If a strong demigod wants to combine magic and martial arts in this world, and if he wants to further master the divine skills, he must have the power to break through the rules that limit the strong demigods in this world. This power can be obtained through obtain artifacts such as forbidden armor. In Guzinyi's words, the armor on the man wearing armor they saw that day was the forbidden armor. That man wearing that forbidden armor could use it even if he couldn't use the divine skills. You can easily crush them all using the combination of magic and martial arts. The forbidden armor comes from the secret treasure of God. This information was enough for Xiaopinggan to digest for a day. After hearing that the combination of magic and martial arts could evolve into a divine skill, Xiaopinggan's head was full of these 3 words. I wonder if only divine skills can destroy those dark towers. Xiaopinggan had a vague premonition that he would face the fiercest battle in his life in the land of the Divine Seal. At the same time the next day, the door of the hall opened with a bang, and the man in armor whom he had seen yesterday stood at the door of the hall. The sun shines on that person's back, making that person's figure look particularly oppressive. Very good. You have all passed the loyalty test and are now considered members of the army of the Lord of Heaven. Now, follow me to the military camp. There, you will learn the rules of the army. Just like the first time they met, the man turned around and left after saying this. The people who stayed in the hall left the hall one by one, followed the man, and were taken to the military camp by the man. Brother Gu, do you know why you went to the military camp? Are you participating in training? Xiaopinggan walked next to Guzinyi and asked Guzinyi directly. The man in armor walked in front without looking back, not caring about the discussions among the team. Probably, Guzinyi nodded slightly, with a hint of expectation on his face. I heard before that if you want to join the army of the 2 major masters, there will be some very strict tests and tests. These tests can tell your talents and specialties, determine what you can do in the army in the future. Those at the lowest level can only complete simple tasks such as providing logistical assistance to the army. Those without any skills will probably have to rely on their own skills every month in the future. the divine power fills the army with divine crystals, and those with extraordinary talents, especially those who may be able to master divine skills, will become the main force in the army and will also receive forbidden armor. How can the divine skills be so easy to master? I have been in seclusion in Bayunsi for more than 200 years and have not mastered a single divine skill. If I don't master the divine skills, I will be like cannon fodder on the battlefield. In fact, I will not be able to provide logistics and support to the army no matter what. You can still earn military merits in exchange for resources safely, without having to fight and kill, and you will also have the opportunity to become a god in the future. At least you no longer have to worry about being hunted down like prey by the army of the dominant demon god. The person who spoke was a person. A man with a face as white as snow. This man has a soft voice, red lips, and looks a bit enchanting. This man's name is Fang Shu. After a group of people stayed in the hall for a day, Xiaoping'an already basically knew the names and general temperaments of these scattered gods who fled from the Bayunsi. Some of these scattered gods came here to prepare for revenge and revenge. The dominant demon gods fought hard to the end, while some were frightened out of their wits and just wanted to find a place where they could stay and survive. The man took Xiaoping'an and the others to a nearby teleportation array. When everyone entered the teleportation array, the man waved his hand and the light flashed in the teleportation array. In the blink of an eye, Xiaoping'an and the others had arrived at a teleportation array with 4 sides. They are all in military camps with high walls. Judging from the environment and surrounding architectural styles, this place should still be in Wolong territory, but it is probably tens of thousands of kilometers away from the hall where Xiaoping'an and the others were just now. Outside the teleportation array is a huge square covering an area of hundreds of square kilometers. There are already hundreds of people in the square. Many people are sitting cross-legged directly in the square, as if they have been waiting for a long time. The man asks Xiaoping'an and the others to wait in the square and not leave. When the time is up, someone will tell them what to do. After saying this, the man turned around and re-entered the teleportation array. He waved his hand and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Xiaoping'an and the others could only wait in the square for 5 days. During these 5 days, some people wanted to leave the square, but found that the area around the square had been sealed by a powerful barrier and could not leave at all. Fortunately, magic can be used in this square, and everyone's magical power can also be used. It was not sealed, so everyone waited patiently. In the past 5 days, the teleportation array around the square has lit up from time to time. Every time it lights up, some new people will come here and find a place to sit quietly and wait in the square. As for Gu Xinyi and the others, during these 5 days, they actually found many acquaintances who had escaped from the Bayunsi here. These acquaintances were a little excited to see each other. 5 days later, when tens of thousands of people gathered in the square, a voice appeared in the sky above the square. Okay, this time the people are almost here. I will tell you the rules of joining the army of the Lord of Heaven and what you are going to do here. There was only sound, and no one could be seen. The sound was extremely domineering, rumbling above everyone's heads. In just a moment, the entire square fell silent. Everyone in the square was looking around, wanting to see who is talking. In my eyes, tens of thousands of you are just a bunch of trash and weaklings. If the situation hadn't forced me to do so, I guess most of you wouldn't want to come here to face the most cruel people in the universe. Fight. The voice continued, but it suddenly aroused the public indignation of everyone in the square. The square suddenly became commotion, and some people showed excited expressions on their faces. Who is it? Who is talking and insulting me? Stand up if you can. Some summoners in the square shouted. Why, you don't accept it, the voice sneered, and the next second everyone felt that the square beneath their feet was shaking. The entire square was rising, like taking an elevator, from the ground to the air. Then, everyone saw clearly, the entire square is in the palm of a giant wearing black armor. The giant's body stands in the sky, like a god, easily grabbing the entire square and the tens of thousands of people in the square, and lifting it to his in front of him. He stared at everyone with three majestic eyes, with a trace of mockery on his face, as if staring at the ants and dust on his palms. This is my giant body with spiritual skills. Among the tens of thousands of you, none of you have mastered the spiritual skills. So at this moment, in my eyes, you are almost like ants. I only need to pinch it with 5 fingers, and you will all turn into dust. Is defenseless. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 975. Is this a divine skill? Xiaopingan has always been quiet in the crowd in the square. But at this moment, looking at the giant who stretched out his hill-like head and looked down at the square, Xiaopingan's heart was surging, and the pores all over his body exploded. An emotion mixed with great excitement and a little panic, passing through the central nervous system of Xiaopingan's body like a subtle electric current, causing his adrenaline to soar rapidly. The giant in front of him was not a magic summon, nor an illusion. It gave Xiaopingan the feeling that it was completely real. Even when he looked at it with the eyes of heaven, he could not see any flaws. In the eyes of heaven, the giant in front of him was completely real. The whole body is shining with golden brilliance, and there is nothing false about it. This giant is a giant with 3 eyes. The light in his eyes flashes and is full of majesty, just like those characters in myths and legends. In the center of the giant's eyebrows, there is also a huge vertical eye, which is bright and seems to have insight. All in all, one eye of this giant was bigger than several people standing up, and when the giant opened his mouth to speak, it was like dull thunder rolling through the air, and it was like a strong wind blowing through his mouth. This is the most intuitive experience of divine skills. This experience is shocking. If I could master such a powerful secret skill of the gods, could I destroy the Tower of Darkness and free the Earth from the nightmare of space invasion forever? This is the body of a giant. Could it be the fusion of magic and martial arts and giant summoning? Xiaopingan secretly guessed in his heart, and he suddenly cheered up and stared at the giant in front of him. Faced with the ridicule of such a strong man with the power of the god of giants, everyone in the square was speechless and found it difficult to argue, because the strength of both sides lay here. Although what this man said hurt people's self-esteem, but it's true. The scene in front of him reminded Xiaopingan of the training that new recruits in the army undergo when they join the army. Facing a group of newcomers who are difficult to discipline, they must first dampen the enthusiasm and arrogance of these newcomers, and let these newcomers develop the habit of obedience. This should be the first thing many tribes do. I know that the vast majority of you are from the Sanchin clan, coming from different corners of the universe. You used to be aloof beings, but here, from the moment you stepped into the Crouching Dragon territory, it's nothing, just a rookie here with low strength who can be manipulated by others. Today, in my hands, I will not kill you, but if it is on the battlefield, what you are facing is from the subordinates of the dominant demon god. A strong man who wants your lives will not hesitate for even half a second. The giant spoke again, looking coldly at the tens of thousands of people in the square in his palm. Many of you have been in this world for tens of thousands of years, or even more than 100,000 years, after becoming demigods. Over the past tens of thousands of years, many of you have always faced the war between the two masters with a bystander attitude. You always feel that if the matter has nothing to do with you, you can stay out of it. As demigods, you have an almost endless lifespan, and then you just want to enjoy everything in this endless lifespan, and ignite the divine fire safely to advance to the gods. Today, your dream has finally awakened. You only know that to become a god, you need to ignite the divine fire of the avenue, but no one told you that fearlessness is the first condition for a person to ignite his own spiritual fire. Throughout the ages, there has never been a cowardly god. When many of you choose to escape war and fight as a clan of scattered gods, the road to becoming a god has actually been cut off. As soon as the giant said these words, Xiaopingan didn't feel much special, but at the same time, he also found that the faces of many people in the square around him suddenly changed. They changed violently, as if they had been struck by lightning, their bodies were shaking, and their faces were ashen. An old man not far from Xiaopingan changed his face drastically and murmured to himself, "In all eternity, there has never been a cowardly god, in all eternity, there has never been a cowardly god, so that's it, that's it." There are also some people who suddenly realized as if they were awakened. This shows that many people did not know that there are such conditions for igniting the sacred fire of the avenue and becoming a god. The words said by this giant are all hard goods. As the saying goes, one sentence is true and thousands of books are false. In fact, many truths can be explained clearly in one sentence, but unfortunately, many people may not know it in their lifetime. In the past countless thousands of years, the gods who have ignited the sacred fire of the Great Way among the Sanshan clan have not joined the armies of the two major masters, but almost all of them have the experience of training on the most dangerous battlefields, or have the ability to. It's just that you don't know your own unique method of refining your heart. It's ridiculous that those of you who claim to be wise and smart always think that becoming a god means practicing alone. Being involved in a war between masters will bring danger to you. Everyone spends their days thinking about how to seek good fortune and avoid misfortune. Let me tell you, if you want to become a god, the biggest danger is to escape. Let me tell you the second truth. Throughout the ages, there has never been a god who can ignite the divine fire of the great avenue without mastering the divine skills. The more and stronger the demigod masters the divine skills, the more likely he is to ignite the divine fire of the great avenue. Before becoming a god, more than 95% of the gods in history had mastered more than 20 kinds of divine skills. So, the closest path to becoming a god is before you, which is to join the army, refine your mind and hone your skills on the battlefield. When you have mastered more than 10 kinds of god skills, you will be able to touch them. A chance to become a god, with the hope of igniting the divine fire of the great avenue. This is the secret of becoming a god. Many of you may have never heard of it before. This is the first benefit for you to join the army of the Lord of Heaven. The giant continued to speak, which suddenly cheered up many people in the square. The next second, the giant waved his other hand in the air, and a high platform suddenly appeared on the ground in the middle of the square. On the high platform was a huge teleportation array. This teleportation array will lead to a secret realm called the Forbidden Palace. All demigods who come to the land of the Divine Seal can enter the Forbidden Palace once in their life and stay there for 108 days. The opportunity of heaven. In these 108 days, you have the opportunity to get the forbidden armor in the Forbidden Palace. If you can get the forbidden armor in the Forbidden Palace, you have the possibility to understand the divine skills. Of course, you also have the possibility die inside, because the passage leading to the Forbidden Palace is in the hands of us and the dominant demon god. They will also send their demigods into it to fight for the forbidden armor, and there are many dangers in the Forbidden Palace itself. The taboo, the shrine, is a gate to hell. The casualty rate for those who enter it is over 50%. This is the second benefit for you. Those who want to enter the Forbidden Shrine can stand on the teleportation platform. After a while, the teleporter will activate. The crowd in the square became commotion. No one expected that in the blink of an eye, the test of life and death would be placed in front of them. Those who are afraid of losing their lives and don't want to enter the Forbidden Palace can also step aside. This test is not mandatory. It is entirely up to you. It's just your own choice. It's just that you only have one chance. Those who don't want to enter the Forbidden Palace now will be ruled by heaven in the future. In the army, you can only undertake logistics and auxiliary work. You will not be sent to perform tasks beyond your capabilities, but the resources you will receive will not exceed your contribution. You now have 10 minutes to carefully think about it. This choice is related to your future. As for those who choose to enter the Forbidden Palace, I have only one request for you. You are prohibited from killing each other. If those who enter it are found to have their hands stained with the blood of others present when they come out, they will be burdened with the cause and effect of killing their companions. You will be executed according to military regulations. So, don't take any chances. Your enemies are the people on the side of the dominant demon god, not your partners around you. Even if you are faced with the temptation of huge benefits, you must stick to yourselves. Bottom line. Okay, now start the clock. After the giant finished speaking, a huge clock appeared in the square and began to count down. Sure enough, it was only 10 minutes. Many people hesitated at this moment. Although they had a chance to obtain the forbidden armor by entering the Forbidden Palace, the 50% casualty rate was unbearable for many people. There were many people in the square who immediately jumped onto the teleportation platform. The people who have become demigods today are the most outstanding people. Once they set their goals, they will never give up easily. After seeing that there were already thousands of people on the teleportation platform, Xiaopingan came to the teleportation platform in a hurry, waiting to enter the Forbidden Palace. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 976. Of the more than 10,000 people in the square, almost 80% chose to take the risk of entering the Forbidden Palace, and almost 20% chose to give up. In just a moment, the teleportation platform was filled with people, while the people in the square suddenly became sparse. Not everyone still has the courage to fight to the death after becoming a demigod. From now on, everyone's path will be different. Gu Xinyi looked at those people with gloomy faces and lacked the courage to step onto the teleportation platform, and curled up his lips. He shook his head slightly and said to Xiaopingan, among the more than 20 people who came to Wolong territory with Gu Xinyi, 5 of them hesitated for a long time and finally did not step onto the teleportation platform. For them, they may know very well that to reach this point, they may have used up all their courage and luck. Living is better than dying. I would find it strange if everyone could come up. Xiaopingan said calmly. He actually understood those who gave up. If they were not forced to do so, those people would probably never want to be involved in such a war in their lives. 80% of people would dare to do so. To fight for his life at this time is actually somewhat beyond Xiaopingan's expectations. The life of a scattered god will completely kill a person's ambition. They are the gods of their divine kingdom and can enjoy everything. Gu Xinyi sighed, maybe they are used to that kind of life. If it weren't for this war, I am still immersed in my previous life. Just wish ourselves good luck. Yes, we wish ourselves well. I hope we can meet again when we come back. Gu Xinyi took a deep look at Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan nodded and said nothing, because the next second, the giant waved his hand, the light and shadow on the teleportation platform lit up, and everyone disappeared from the teleportation platform. After sending away the people on the teleportation platform, the giant glanced at those who continued to stay in the square, and his tone suddenly became gentle. The army of the Lord of Heaven will respect the choices you make. Report to the logistics department. Someone will tell you what to do. You can still contribute to the God War and receive corresponding rewards and resources. Your safety will also be guaranteed. Don't worry, after our victory, you can live the life you want. After all, in this world, there are always only a few people who can become gods in the end. The giant's words made the people staying in the square feel a lot calmer. Some people who were worried just now felt relieved after hearing these words. Another teleportation array appeared in the square, and the remaining 2,000 people got on the new teleportation array. In the blink of an eye, they were teleported away in a flash of light. In a moment, the square in the sky became empty, and there was no one left. The giant looked at the square, with a rare expression of human sadness on his majestic face, and said softly to himself, "Oh, I don't know how many people will come back this time. This is the fate we must embrace. When darkness sweeps across the world, if we do not rot and fall in the darkness, we must shine brightly in the darkness. War is everywhere and is unavoidable. If we want to survive, we must only to be able to pick up a sword and fight, to choose a path between slaves and gods. Isn't that how we came here in the first place?" A voice appeared in the air. As the voice appeared, a golden lotus bloomed in the void, and then a handsome man wearing sky blue armor walked out of the golden lotus. He stood calmly in front of the giant's head. "Have you mastered the divine skill of void golden lotus?" The giant's three giant eyes flashed, and he looked at the man who appeared in front of him in surprise. A reserved and complacent smile appeared on the handsome man's face. "For more than 30 years, I have spent so much military power in exchange for more than 10 heavenly spiritual pills, and finally I have an epiphany. The magical skill of this void golden lotus is just a small achievement. This step has only spanned more than 80,000 miles. Haha, don't be too envious. I can't help but cut off a few more dog heads to celebrate myself." At this point, this handsome man, the man also stretched out 4 fingers and shook them at the giant, with a smile on his lips, as if to challenge, "Lei Kong, I have mastered the 4 divine skills now. It won't take long for me to master the third one. The skills of 5 gods surpass yours." The giant looked at this man, his face as dark as water. "Really? Don't be left behind by me, I'll be waiting for you in the battlefield." After saying this, the next second, a golden lotus bloomed on the handsome man's body again, and then the whole man disappeared into the airspace without a trace. "Is this the Forbidden Palace?" Xiaopingan stood in the sky full of sword-like mountain peaks, looking at the ground under his feet in surprise. As soon as he was teleported, he realized that he was falling from the sky, and then he stopped in the air with a thought. Xiaopingan found that his previously imprisoned flying skills and strength had been fully restored. Not only that, the rich power of the 5 elements between the world and the world suddenly resonated with him. The laws of this forbidden palace are similar to those of the god-killing insect world. The summoner's strength will not be affected at all here, and the combat skills of magic and martial arts can be freely displayed. Xiaopingan was overjoyed when he understood. He felt that every pore in his body felt relaxed. For him, this was like a tiger entering the mountains and a dragon returning to the sea. The sea and the sky were as vast as he wanted. The taboo shrine turns out to be a shrine that breaks the rules and taboos. It's just that none of the other people who were teleported with him just now can be seen. This shows that the area of the Forbidden Palace may be beyond one's imagination. Everyone came here randomly. Has my power finally come back? Xiaopingan looked at his hands and clenched his fists. The light in his eyes became sharper and sharper, and a smile gradually appeared at the corner of his mouth. Xiaopingan couldn't help but shout in the sky. A long and continuous roar, the sound shook hundreds of miles, and a sigh of relief filled the chest. Ever since he came to the god realm of the gods, Xiaopingan felt that he had been holding back and being cautious every step of the way, making it difficult for him to exert his strength. Now, he finally no longer has to hold back. Xiaopingan's roar rippled through the air like thunder, echoing loudly in the peaks below with astonishing momentum. As soon as the whistling subsided, Xiaopingan's eyes narrowed and he looked northeast. In the northeast direction, there were 3 black spots, flying towards him at lightning speed. When the light spots flew closer, they turned out to be 3 alien demigods with horns on their heads and covered with hair, each over 3 meters tall. One of the 3 alien demigods held a giant axe in his hand, another held a long sword, and another held a pair of hooks. There were blood stains on the weapons of the 3, which seemed to have been battle-hardened. The 3 alien demigods looked at Xiaopingan and burst into laughter. "Brother, I saw a space vortex here just now, but I didn't expect another business to come to my door. The alien demigod holding the hook smiled, I want the head of this human demigod. Don't be careless. The eyes of the alien demigod holding the axe looked back and forth on Xiaopingan, looking particularly vigilant. In addition to looking at Xiaopingan, he also looked at the surrounding environment. Be careful, there is an ambush here. Haha, brother, you are too careful. This human race has obviously just been teleported here. He happened to be alone. There will be no ambush here. How about brother raiding the formation for us? We go up and kill him and take his heart and soul. Wine, the alien demigod holding the hook said with a smile. Xiaopingan was very calm. He kept looking at the three guys calmly, and a smile gradually appeared on the corner of his mouth. I haven't done anything with anyone for a long time. You three had better go together, otherwise there will be no chance. The three alien demigods looked at each other, and then unexpectedly laughed together. Boy, where do you think this is? We three brothers have been here for more than 50 days and have killed 17 human demigods. You are the 18th, the alien demigod known as the eldest brother smiled ferociously. You'll be unlucky if you meet us here. Really? Then go to hell. Xiaopingan was too lazy to talk nonsense. He raised his hand, gathered the fearless seal, and punched the three of them with one punch. As soon as the fearless seal came out, within 100 miles, the sky collapsed and the earth shattered. At this moment, there was only one fist between the heaven and the earth, and it was like the top of Mount Tai, hitting the three alien demigods. The expressions of those three guys changed instantly. Before coming to the realm of the gods, Xiaopingan's combination of magic and martial arts had been honed to the highest 5th level, crushing countless demigods. Coupled with the body of a god he absorbed, his physical fitness, as well as the power of sympathetic control with the power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth, are one level higher than ordinary demigods. Even the 3 alien demigods also have the ability to combine magic and martial arts, and they are all at the peak, but compared with Xiaopingan, it is really not on the same level. Boom! The fist of the fearless seal tore the sky. With just one punch, the bodies of the 3 alien demigods were exploded by Xiaopingan at the same time. 3 balls of plasma exploded from the air. The 3 powerful alien demigods were like being swatted by flies. The fly that had fallen down was knocked from the air to the ground by Xiaopingan, with its skin torn and flesh covered in blood, and 3 large craters were made on the ground. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 977. Escape. The 3 alien demigods were hit hard by Xiaopingan's punch and fell to the ground. This punch had completely woken them up, knowing that they had met top figures in the Forbidden Palace. The 3 of them are not weak at first, and they have a numerical advantage. Even if they encounter a strong demigod who has understood the highest level of magic and martial arts, they can still fight, and they can even gain the upper hand, so they have nothing to fear. But they didn't expect that Xiaopingan's power was completely beyond their imagination. This punch had already frightened them. In an instant, a bloody light flew up from the ground. Without thinking, it flew in the direction they had just come from. This alien demigod was the one with the fastest reaction speed. Do you want to escape? It's too late, Xiaopingan said coldly. His whole body moved like a meteor. In just one flash, with lightning speed, he caught up with the first person who wanted to escape. The alien demigod waited until he was within 100 meters of the alien demigod before punching out again. Ah! The alien demigod felt something abnormal behind him, turned his head suddenly, and saw Xiaopingan's fist coming towards him. He never expected that Xiaopingan would be so fast. When he ran for his life, he had actually after using the secret technique, he didn't even care about the broken bones, broken tendons, and cracked skin. With a loud cry, he raised the long sword in his hand and slashed towards Xiaopingan. This sword was also a combination of magic and martial arts. With his combat skills, he drew out his sword, and the power of fire in the 5 elements around him vibrated. A ray of fire rippled from the blade of the sword, like a fire dragon piercing the sky. It hit Xiaoping's head with great force. However, Xiaoping's second punch was extremely restrained, like a spear thrust out, condensing all the power into the fist. This seemingly ordinary punch had already concentrated the essence of the Ji fist seal. The fist was as strong as a mountain of iron, and it struck with a roar, easily tearing away the fire on the sword, just like tearing a piece of cloth. There was a cracking sound in the void, and the alien demigod felt that the wrist holding the sword was being pinched. An unimaginable force washed away the whole arm, and the whole arm was shattered in one fell swoop. The scream was just halfway out of his mouth, and Xiaoping's fist had already hit his chest solidly. Superior. The power in Xiaoping's fist was so terrifying that it was unimaginable. In just a moment, the alien demigod felt that every cell in his body was filled with the destructive power of the 5 elements, reaching the point of explosion. The power of the 5 elements is so powerful. This power of the 5 elements is like a vast ocean. It is more than 100 times the power of controlling the 5 elements with the secret skill of combining magic and martial arts. How can there be such a powerful summoner demigod? This was the last thought that popped up in the alien demigod's head. Boom! The alien demigod's entire body exploded in the air like foam, turning into ashes in an instant. Only the long sword in his hand and the contents of the space equipment on his body exploded in the air with a clatter. Xiaoping couldn't even see it. Without looking at those things, he just waved his hand and received everything into his warehouse. Xiaoping turned his head and looked at the other 2 alien demigods. The 2 alien demigods were frightened out of their wits at this moment. The 2 seemed to understand that even if they got together, they were no match for Xiaoping, so at this moment the 2 simply turned into 2 rays of blood and flew in 2 different directions behind Xiaoping, thinking that if Xiaoping chased the other one, at least the other one of them could survive. Innocent, Xiaoping looked at the 2 alien demigods who were running away, sneered, shook his head slightly, and didn't chase them at all. He just punched the will seal in the sky. When the 2 alien demigods turned into blood and fled, their speed was almost dozens of times the speed of sound. The 2 of them could distance themselves from Xiaoping by tens of thousands of meters in 1 second. In the blink of an eye, in fact, it had flown 70 or 80 kilometers, but when Xiaoping punched out, everything changed. The sky above the 2 of them suddenly darkened, as if night had fallen. The 2 raised their heads and discovered that a huge 5-element wheel with a diameter of more than 200 kilometers suddenly appeared in the sky, slowly rotating in the sky. With the immeasurable power of the 5 elements in the void, the power of water in the power of the 5 elements emerged in the void and turned into a huge tsunami. A wave swept across the sky, rolling faster and faster, pressing towards them. Down. At this moment, the sky and the earth seemed to hang upside down, and the huge wheel of the 5 elements was like a huge rotating millstone, and the 2 of them were like 2 inconspicuous soybeans falling on the millstone, surging under the surging force of water. In the raging tsunami, he couldn't help being rolled down towards the black hole in the middle of the millstone. Spiritual skills. The alien demigod holding the giant axe shouted in fear. In his memory, he had never seen the human demigod summoner skill of combining magic and martial arts to be so terrifying. It made him so powerless. He subconsciously thought it was a divine skill. However, how can those powerful men who have mastered the divine skills still enter the Forbidden Palace? It was too late for him to think about this problem. It was not that he didn't want to resist, but the surging tsunami of water and the rotating giant wheel filled the entire space, completely cutting off his connection with the surrounding 5 elements. A strong will it has surpassed his combined magic and martial arts skills, so that even if he has the ability, he can't use it. He can only watch in horror as he is involved in a huge millstone. In less than half a minute, the two escaped alien demigods were caught under the giant will of the will seal before they could fly 100 miles. A moment later, two screams were heard. Xiaopinggan calmly retracted his fist, and the giant will in the sky dissipated. The sky within 200 miles suddenly became clear again, as if nothing had happened. In the distance, the weapons of the two alien demigods, as well as the things that exploded from their bodies that were not destroyed by the will seal, floated directly in front of Xiaopinggan like a small piece of cloud. Among those things, in addition to the two people's weapons, there were many divine crystals, some were naturally formed cube-shaped rare metals, and there were several other miscellaneous things that Xiaopinggan didn't know. What the hell? Suddenly, a shiny object caught Xiaopinggan's eyes. As soon as Xiaopinggan waved, the object fell on Xiaopinggan's hand. It was a boundary bead. There was a golden figure standing in the boundary bead, holding the sky with one hand, and three small seal characters were flashing in the boundary bead, Yi Jinjing. Xiaopinggan didn't expect that it was actually the world bead of the Yi Jinjing. The world bead of the Yi Jinjing. Holding the world bead in his hand, Xiaopinggan took a deep breath and felt that his nerves were a little excited. This Yi Jinjing is also a Chinese treasure. If we talk about cultivation map, and the purpose of Tai Jinhua is a treasure book that only people with top qualifications and understanding can practice. It can make people become immortals and achieve Taoism. Then, this Yi Jinhua Jing is a treasure book of cultivation open to the general public. The meaning of this Yi Jinhua Jing in cultivation, you can follow the instructions. As long as you can endure hardships and be patient, even people with ordinary talents can succeed in cultivation, step by step, become a great master, and even make their bodies indestructible. For the ordinary farmers and soldiers in the secret mandala, the Yi Jinjing is more suitable for their cultivation. He had just received these trophies in the secret mandala, and was thinking about whether to find a place to fuse the world pearl first, and then he felt a huge movement coming from the divine prison tower in the secret mandala. Three brilliant golden divine power nebulae gathered on the giant tower. The hanging radiance of the divine power nebula bathed the giant tower, making the giant tower radiant. The giant tower seemed to have undergone some changes. This is the first time Xiaopinggan has killed a strong man above the demigod level since the giant tower appeared in Xiaopinggan's secret mandala. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 978. In the secret mandala temple, Xiaopinggan's figure appeared in the temple with just a flash of light and shadow. At this moment, it was only more than an hour since Xiaopinggan killed the three opponents. Xiaopinggan had already left the battlefield and used Earth Escape to find a place to stay underground in the mountains of the Forbidden Palace. After setting up the array, he returned to the secret mandala first. The changes in the giant tower in the mandala made Xiaopinggan very curious. Xiaopinggan vaguely felt that the changes in the giant tower this time were very unusual, so he came back to take a look first. My lord. Kui Hao, who was in the temple, immediately bowed and saluted Xiaopinggan. Xiaopinggan glanced at Kui Hao. Where are Han Xian and the others? Han Xian and Xuerongui have set off again with the Templar Knights and Fey Scorpions, Kui Hao said. Again, Xiaopinggan immediately heard the keyword implicit in Kui Hao's words. What have Han Xian and the others done during this period? Kui Hao glanced at Xiaopinggan and coughed twice. A few days ago, after the Lord left Lingxiao City, Han Xian led the city's elite to lurk in the territory of the Kingdom of Grua, ambushed the troops and trading houses of the Kingdom of Grua, and also troops disguised as the Grua Divine Kingdom attacked a fortress of the Flying Scythe Kingdom, with great results. Now the relationship between the Grua Divine Kingdom and the Flying Scythe Kingdom is tense. The two sides are at war with each other and are deploying their troops. A fight has already occurred on the border. There have been several small-scale armed conflicts, and it is very likely that there will be a big war. The general said that this is a good time to weaken our opponents and strengthen our Lingxiao city. Xiaopinggan smiled when he heard Kui Hao's words. He was worthy of being a soldier. After Han Xian did this, several kingdoms in the northeast of Lingxiao City were completely in chaos. How could the Gru kingdom still have the thought and energy to come to Lingxiao City? Trouble, even if the Gru divine kingdom sends troops again, the scale will not be too big, and Lingxiao City can just take advantage of it. With Han Xian here, he no longer has to worry about the defense of Lingxiao City. After bidding farewell to Kui Hao, Xiaoping'an left the Mandala temple and soon came to the foot of the giant tower. He looked up at the three divine power nebulae hovering on the giant tower. His heart trembled slightly and two words came out, "It's happened." Because the huge divine power gathered at the top of the tower, the entire upper part of the giant tower was reflected in a rare golden color. The three divine power nebulae each contain more than 1.4 million divine power points. The divine power nebula hovering on the giant tower can now provide nearly 5.3 million divine power points. In terms of divine power value, this was a huge number that Xiaoping'an could not imagine, and it made him feel a little suffocated. Xiaoping'an didn't expect that this giant tower could actually transform the powerful demigod-level enemies he killed into divine power. Doesn't this mean that as long as I can continue to kill the strong men who dominate the demon god's army, this giant tower can provide me with an endless supply of divine power, and this endless supply of divine power allows me to continue fighting? Xiaoping'an looked at the divine power nebula and said to himself. The changes in the giant tower should be more than this. After all, the ones he killed were strong men of the same level as him, not the ordinary summoners before. Later, Xiaoping'an entered the interior of the giant tower. Under the giant tower, there is another layer of prison. This new prison is an abyss. In the abyss, there are sharp swords growing everywhere. The sharp swords are burning with blazing blood-red flames. Xiaoping'an struck the souls of the three powerful aliens who were killed were suppressed and sealed under the abyss, turning into black iron-like sculptures. Their bodies were locked with thick iron chains, and there were countless burning swords and flames against their bodies. Sure enough, as Xiaoping'an guessed, the soul of his enemy was once again suppressed by the giant tower, but the abyss under the giant tower, in Xiaoping'an's eyes, became more and more like the legendary hell. This is no longer simple imprisonment and suppression, but more like being sealed by a giant tower. On the heads of the three black iron-like sculptures, there was a ball of golden brilliance about the size of an egg, beating like a flame. Xiaoping'an didn't know what that thing was. With the arrival of Xiaoping'an, in the abyss filled with flames and swords, a holy white brilliance descended. The flames in the abyss of hell were extinguished, and the swords turned into colorful flowers. The three sculptures appeared. The face that showed pain suddenly turned into a look of relief after a disaster. This made Xiaoping'an know that the three sculptures sealed here were the souls of the three powerful aliens. They were just suppressed and could not move at all. What is this small ball of golden flame? Xiaoping'an stood in front of a sculpture, frowning slightly and looking at the ball of golden light on the sculpture's head. He didn't know what this thing was. After thinking about it, he stretched out his hand and gently touched the golden flame on the top of the sculpture in front of him with his fingers. Just when Xiaoping'an's fingers touched the golden flame seemed to be activated. It suddenly penetrated Xiaoping'an's fingers like running water absorbed by a sponge. In the body, it stayed at Xiaoping'an's dantian. The golden flame contained a trace of powerful soul power. As soon as it entered Xiaoping'an's dantian, that trace of soul power was absorbed by Xiaoping'an, causing Xiaoping'an's soul power to increase greatly. The same reward you get for killing powerful nightmares in the world. But the golden flame that contained a trace of soul power remained motionless. This incident shocked Xiaoping'an. He felt that the golden flame seemed harmless to him, and Xiaoping'an felt relieved. He thought for a moment, then stretched out his finger and tapped the tops of the other two sculptures. The golden flames, those two golden flames were naturally absorbed by Xiaoping'an's body and flowed into his dantian. Xiaoping'an's body once again absorbed two powerful soul powers. All of a sudden, there were three golden flames in Xiaoping'an's dantian. What is this golden flame for? Xiaopinggan scratched his head. He was also confused. He closed his eyes and felt it. The three golden flames that had been separated from the soul were in his dantian, making his dantian warm, but it didn't seem to be able to. It won't cause him any discomfort when he uses it. The energy of the three golden flames carries a hint of the divine aura of a demigod, but he doesn't know what it is, which is strange. Xiaopinggan thought about it for a while, but he really couldn't figure out what the three golden flames were for, so he stopped wasting time on this issue. Anyway, Xiaopinggan was only sure of one thing: everything that happened in this giant tower was it is impossible to cause any harm to yourself. This is enough. You can study it slowly when you have time in the future, or when certain conditions are mature and met, the effects of these three golden flames will emerge. What Xiaopinggan is most interested in now is the news about the Forbidden Palace and the information about the army of demon gods. This information is the most useful. Xiaopinggan stretched out his hand and placed it on the head of a sculpture. He closed his eyes and thought to peek into the experience and consciousness of the sealed soul. After a few seconds, Xiaopinggan's hand suddenly retracted, with a shocked expression on his face. The consciousness of this powerful demigod was blocked by chaos and darkness. The power of chaos and darkness was violent and terrifying, so powerful that it was impossible to peek at it. Xiaopinggan wanted to go deeper just now, but the last thing he saw was this deep in the soul of the powerful demigod, the dark power of chaos condensed into a totem of the devil's eye. All strong demigods who join the Lord Demon God's army must drink a drop of the Lord Demon God's blood. The power of chaos and darkness coiled in the consciousness of the soul may be the Lord Demon God's means to ensure joining his army. The powerful demigod cannot betray him and can only be controlled by him. Understanding this, Xiaopinggan did not continue. The method of dominating the demon god was really frightening. However, he has also gained a lot, not to mention the use of the remaining three golden flames. The divine power condensed by this giant tower has exceeded Xiaopinggan's imagination, and his increased soul power has also it's very impressive, and it has improved my own strength. Xiaopinggan then left the abyss under the giant tower, then walked out of the giant tower and came to the temple of the secret mandala, preparing to return to his body. When he entered the temple, the three golden flames in his dantian suddenly jumped, and then became quiet again. It seemed that there was some strange connection between the three golden flames and the statues in the temple. Xiaopinggan was secretly surprised, but because the three golden flames were no longer moving, he secretly paid attention to them, and then returned to his true form. In the cave deep underground, Xiaopinggan, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes. He touched his lower abdomen. The three golden flames were still in his dantian, and there was no abnormality at all. The feeling of increased soul power was great, and Xiaopinggan felt that his consciousness and perception were much more flexible. It seems that the role of the giant tower has only really come into play now. The stronger the opponent I encounter, the more obvious the role of the giant tower. Previously in Coreland, the giant tower was not even a small test, only entering the divine seal land, stepping into the final stage of becoming a god. The giant tower showed its original power. If I killed a few more enemies, wouldn't the divine power condensed by the giant tower burst into flames? If it could summon millions of the army of Templar Knights is sweeping across the world of God's kingdom, wouldn't it be possible for me to become stronger and stronger as we fight in the kingdom of God's world, and completely sweep across the world of God's kingdom? Xiaopinggan's eyes flashed with light, and the prospect outlined made him couldn't help but take a deep breath, feeling a little palpitating in his heart. The future is promising, but right now, the things in front of you are still important, and the most important thing is to do what you can do well first. The next second, Xiaopinggan took out the world bead from the Yijinjing and played with it in his hand. He was hesitating whether to fuse the world bead immediately. This world bead is very tempting, but this forbidden palace is indeed not a good place to fuse the world bead. When fusing the world bead, I can only rely on the formation to protect myself. Once I encounter any danger, it is really hard to say. Xiaopinggan thought for a while, but resisted the temptation in front of him and put away the boundary beads of Yi Jingjing again, preparing to leave the Forbidden Palace and return to a safe place to merge again. Xiaopinggan had just put away the boundary pearl. The next second, he felt the fluctuations of Earth escape technique faintly coming from the underground in the far northeast. There were strong people using Earth escape technique to move quickly underground. This made Xiaopinggan his heart trembled. Just now, he wanted to fuse the world pearl underground, but he didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, a strong person would appear within his range of perception. It seemed that merging the world pearl underground was really not a good idea. Xiaopinggan instantly put away the formation disc, hid himself underground, and concentrated on sensing the fluctuations of the Earth escape technique. The demigod's Earth escape technique was already very powerful. He was almost the strongest among the masters of Earth escape technique that Xiaopinggan had ever seen except himself. That man was running at high speed underground, and the Earth escape technique brought about the fluctuations are very obscure. The fluctuations converge into a tiny bunch, which is very difficult to detect. If it weren't for Xiaopinggan's extraordinary talent, another person would not be able to feel the existence of that powerful demigod. When a strong person who masters Earth escape is underground, he or she is like a nuclear submarine diving into the deep sea. Everyone may not be able to see each other, but stronger people can sense each other's existence and at the same time hide themselves so that the other party can feel it. Less than one's own existence. That person didn't notice Xiaopinggan at all, nor did he come for Xiaopinggan. He came from the northeast, went straight, and passed Xiaopinggan underground more than 30 kilometers away from where Xiaopinggan was. When the person left, Xiaopinggan's heart moved, and he followed the person 50 kilometers away, speeding underground with him. At first, Xiaopinggan thought that the guy, like himself, was new to the Forbidden Palace and was exploring the underground environment here. But after following the guy speeding underground for a few hours, Xiaopinggan discovered that the guy seemed to we are not exploring the underground environment here, but we are on our way with a very clear goal. That guy walked in a straight line underground, with a very clear direction and a firm will. He had a goal at first glance and was not affected by the external environment at all. Every few hours he walked, he would stop for a few minutes to correct his path, direction, and then continue on our way. Xiaopinggan followed that guy and ran underground for 7 days. In these 7 days, at their speed, the two of them traveled millions of kilometers underground. 7 days later, the guy finally arrived at his destination. Xiaopinggan was shocked when he saw the scene in front of him. This is underground in the Forbidden Palace. There is a huge space underground. In this space, there is an unimaginably huge humanoid body lying flat, like a huge island floating in the void. How big is this humanoid body? From head to toe, it is more than 1,000 kilometers long. Moreover, the whole body is bronze in color. It has been petrified after countless years, as if it were carved from metal. It looks particularly simple. What is even weirder is that this huge body is floating in the underground space. The whole body is still faintly emitting with a strong pressure. The body of the ancient god. There really is the body of the ancient god in the Forbidden Palace. I found it. The guy Xiaopinggan had followed for 7 days emerged from the ground, flew in the air, and shouted to the sky with joy. At this time, Xiaopinggan discovered that the guy he had not met for 7 days was not a person from the demon god's side, but a figure from his own side. He had an impression of a guy he had seen in the square before. He was an old man, wearing a white robe, with white hair and a white beard, and a slightly fat body. At first glance, he looked a bit like a fairy. But if you look closely, you will find that the old man's eyes are very small and narrowed into a slit. The tip of his nose was slightly red, and he felt a bit like rosacea. Especially when he was dancing and shouting happily at this moment, the fairy-like temperament on his body suddenly disappeared. Instead, he felt a little wretched, like someone underground. Like a groundhog digging up sweet potatoes. Ancient God. Xiaopinggan didn't know what an ancient god was, but looking at the body in front of him, this so-called ancient god might be an ancient god. The old man didn't realize that he was being followed by Xiaopinggan for 7 days. After being happy for a while, he flew directly towards the head of the huge body. To be honest, the head of the ancient god's body is too big. It's just that the ancient god's protruding nose looks like the Himalayas floating in the sky. The ancient god's eyes and mouth are closed. The nostrils spread out like two huge dark caves. The old man actually flew directly towards the ancient god's nostrils, as if he wanted to enter the ancient god's body through the nostrils. Xiaopinggan didn't move. He planned to follow the old man in after he entered. After a moment, the old man flew to the ancient god's head and got directly through the nostril on the left side of the ancient god. 2 full minutes later, Xiaopinggan was about to move. Suddenly, he felt something and his face changed slightly. Boom! The scorching fire light spurted out from the nostril on the left side of the ancient god. Just like a volcanic eruption, the old man who had just gotten into the ancient god's nostrils was like a cannonball. His whole body was sprayed out from his nostrils in the firelight, and he was extremely embarrassed. The clothes on the old man's body were completely charred, and half of his beard was singed. He started to vomit blood while he was in the air. Then, Xiaopinggan saw that after the old man was sprayed out from the ancient god's nostrils, 7 figures flew out, chasing the old man. Those 7 figures were wearing black armor, but that armor was not forbidden armor. Xiaopinggan could tell at a glance that it was a first-level sacred weapon. The 7 figures were 7 strong men, each with a full face. Hangru's body was filled with demonic aura, and each of them had a blood-colored flame pattern between their eyebrows. Needless to say, these 7 people were subordinates of the dominant demon god at a glance. The 7 men chased the old man out, filled with evil spirits, and they used killing moves without mercy. The swords in the hands of the 7 men were slashed out, and the combat skills of magic and martial arts broke out. The power of fire from the 5 elements came from the void. It surged out and turned into swords, fire nets, volcanoes, fire bells, giant flaming hands, etc., attacking the old man from all directions, leaving no chance for the old man to survive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 979. The old man who was being chased by the 7 men was shouting and waving his hands desperately, inciting the combination of magic and martial arts. A series of blue water waves bloomed around him, turning into waves one after another. The waves, whales, sharks, octopuses and other water creatures faced the killing moves such as fire knives, fire nets, volcanoes, fire bells, and giant flaming hands that came towards him. The huge roar of the collision of water and fire resounded in the cave. Although the old man was not weak, he was always 1 against 7. In a short time, the 7 people were forced to panic and become more and more embarrassed. Danger abounds. Don't get me wrong, I'm just passing by, I'm leaving now, I won't delay you from getting rich. The old man was yelling, but at the critical moment, there was a smile on his face, and he was still explaining. And just as he was shouting, a sharp flaming knife flew thousands of meters across the sky, almost grazing the old man's beard and scorching it. He just retreated 100 meters to avoid the blow. Behind the old man, hundreds of spears formed by flames shot out again. I saw the old man's figure trembling, and his whole body turned into 3 in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the 3 old men rushed in 3 different directions. It's not that easy to escape. Since you also know where this ancient god's body is, then die, the leading men among the seven sneered, and each commanded two people to catch up with the incarnation of an old man and surround him. At the same time, he ordered, "Fourth, this old man knows the earth escape technique. Go ahead and don't let him escape. Use the formation to trap him first. Let's take care of him slowly and see where he runs." "Yes," a man responded, immediately broke away from the battle group, and flew to the top of this huge underground space. He took out a glazed 7-story pagoda formation disc in his hand, pinched the formation with his hands, and threw it violently. When the formation came out, the light flashed in the sky instantly, and it grew when it saw the wind. In the blink of an eye, the formation covered the airspace of tens of thousands of square kilometers, forming a huge cloud in the sky, completely covering the bodies of everyone who was still fighting. The shape is covered. Although the old man's figure was transformed into 3 and his escape speed was relatively fast, he could not run thousands of kilometers in the blink of an eye, so he was trapped by the formation. It was only at this time that Xiaoping's figure, holding a leaf in his hand, gradually emerged from the void above the clouds formed by the formation. Just now, Xiaoping used the blinding technique to hide his figure and watched those people fighting. There are no trees underground. The leaves in Xiaoping's hands are from the mandala and the kingdom of God. As a medium for casting spells, they are easy to retrieve. The Hualongkija formation is interesting. This array can be used as a mountain protecting formation. Xiaoping looked at the formation at his feet. His eyes flickered, and in the next second, his entire body suddenly fell into the formation. The old man seemed to have no way out just now, but Xiaoping could feel that the old man still hid his own strength and had some reservations when using the combined magic and martial arts skills, so that he would not be killed all at once. This time, the Long Qiju formation looked like a death maze full of dangers to others, but to Xiaoping, it was a place that could be entered and exited with his eyes closed. After he entered the formation, he figured out the 7 secrets in the formation. After his position changed, Xiaoping's body flashed and he reached the core of the formation in just a short time. In the core of the formation, a surging sea of blood-red fire and several ice-blue water dragons collided and bombarded in the air. The power of water and fire of the 5 elements roared here, causing countless people in the surrounding area to explode. Flames flew across the sky within 100 miles, water vapor filled the air, clouds and mist transpired, and the power of the 5 elements flew in the air like cannonballs and sharp knives. The old man was once again surrounded by the 7 people in the formation. His hair was disheveled and he was unable to advance or retreat. He was being surrounded and killed. No one, including those 7 people, noticed Xiaoping's arrival. Suddenly, there was a bang. A ball of extremely dazzling purple electric light burst out from the old man's body. The electric light spread across the sky, rapidly expanding like a ball, swallowing up thousands of meters of space around it, and then turned into a giant pillar, which suddenly hit the man who surrounded him was blasted until the man was covered in smoke, vomiting blood, and shot towards the back like a cannonball. In addition, the lightning also rubbed against the water vapor in the surrounding void, and streaks of blue lightning spread out from the void like a giant net, blasting away the other people who were besieging him. Retreat tens of thousands of meters away. Be careful, this old man has something powerful on his hands, shouted a man who was so shocked that his whole body was smoking. At this moment, the old man had a golden hammer and a black chisel more than a foot long in his hand. These 2 things were just like the weapons in the hands of the legendary Chinese thunder god. The old man's eyebrows stood up. There was a hint of ferocity on his face, and he shouted, "Don't force me, if you force me again, Grandpa, I will die together with you grandsons." As he spoke, the old man pointed the chisel in his hand towards a guy who was rushing over, and hit the chisel with the hammer. Another ball of blazing and dazzling electric light burst out from the chisel, and it rubbed against the water vapor in the air. Countless lightning bolts and a huge sharp electric beam several meters thick passed through the giant flaming hand and directly hit the person who wanted to rush over. The person was so shocked that he vomited blood and was shot away like a cannonball into the distance. Submerged in the clouds and mist in the sky. Brother, it's a divine weapon. No, it's an artifact that's still sealed. The old man can't exert the power of what he's holding. If it's a divine weapon, we can't stop it. Brothers, kill him, and the things will be ours. Several men shouted, and each of them looked at the thing in the old man's hand with greedy eyes like a hungry wolf seeing its prey. Xiaopingan was originally watching the excitement, and he was dozens of miles away, but unexpectedly, the guy who had just been hit by the hammer and chisel in the old man's hand, vomiting blood and flying backwards, was just a few meters in front of Xiaopingan. Kilometers away. The guy was wheezing and coughing violently. He was already injured. It seemed that the injury was not serious. As soon as he stopped in the air, he vomited 2 more mouthfuls of blood. Then the guy gasped and moved his hand and took out a bottle of pills. Seems to want to take. If you don't do anything with the food that's served in front of you, you'd be really sorry for yourself. Just when the man raised his head and was about to take the pill, Xiaopingan licked his lips and silently came behind the man. The sky was filled with clouds, mist, and fire. Xiaopingan hid again, making no sound during his actions. In addition, the person was injured. He never expected that there would be a 9th person in the formation, so his vigilance was also low. It wasn't high, so Xiaopingan didn't notice anything unusual even when he got close to him. The moment he just swallowed the pill, Xiaopingan's left hand suddenly covered the man's mouth. The man was startled. Before he could react, almost at the same time, the iron fist formed by the demon subduing seal on Xiaopingan's right hand, it had silently hit that person's heart from behind. The power of the demon subduing seal is so great. With Xiaopingan's cultivation, one punch can turn the river upside down within 100 miles, let alone hit the vital parts of that person's body directly at such a close distance. The terrifying power of the 5 elements exploded overwhelmingly in that person's body, and in just an instant, it turned that person's heart into ashes. The powerful force crushed that person's organs and bones into slag in an instant, and crushed that person in an instant. All human vitality. The body of the man whose mouth was covered by Xiaopingan was instantly reduced to ashes by this powerful force and dissipated little by little in the air. Only the weapons in his hands, the armor on his body, and some things in the space equipment exploded. Come out. As Xiaopingan waved his hand, a drop of blood flew out, and powerful soul power poured into the person's armor. The sacred armor on that person had just dimmed after losing its owner. In an instant, it had a new owner, and again glorious again. Some of the things that exploded from that person were also received by Xiaopingan into his own space equipment. Then in the blink of an eye, Xiaopingan turned into that person, wearing that person's armor, holding the weapon in that person's hand, and rushed towards the other side of the battlefield. The whole process takes less than 3 seconds. On the other side of the battlefield, among the clouds tens of thousands of meters away, there was also a guy. His hair was burnt black by electricity, and the exposed skin on his armor was partially carbonized by the electricity. This man had just swallowed the pill. To stop the blood he coughed up, the carbonized skin on his body began to fragment, and new skin was growing. This guy was the first to suffer a big loss from the old man's hammer and chisel. Because he was closest to the old man, he was injured more seriously than the man who had just been killed by Xiaopingan. Are you okay? Xiaopingan flew to the man's side and asked. That person saw Xiaopingan flying over. She didn't doubt him at all, just spat out a mouthful of saliva and said harshly, "It's not a big deal. It will probably take a while to fully recover. That old dog is very cunning and almost suffered a big loss from him just now. Yes, that old man definitely has a lot of good things." As he spoke, Xiaopingan had already arrived at that man's side. "Let's go up together and continue to kill him," the man said, and was about to fly forward. "Wait a minute," Xiaopingan said, already putting a hand on the man's shoulder. "What's the matter?" The man stopped and just turned around. Xiaopingan's hand on the man's shoulder instantly clamped the man's neck like an iron pliers. With a huge explosion of force in his hand, he crushed the man's throat with a click. At the same time, Xiaopingan's right hand, the demon subduing seal, struck the man's heart from behind again. The man stared at Xiaopingan, with a look of astonishment in his eyes, but his body gradually turned into ashes and dissipated in the air. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 980. Seeing a demigod-level strongman disappear under his hands without any resistance, Xiaopingan felt a strange feeling in his heart. At this moment, he finally understood where the pleasure of being an assassin came from, and he finally understood. I understand why some guys just don't like to challenge people openly and head-on, but like to plot against others behind their backs, sneak attacks, and use dirty tricks. Because, this feeling, actually, if I don't say it hypocritically, it's quite refreshing. Yes, it's quite refreshing, very refreshing, hugely refreshing. The psychological pleasure of being crushed in terms of IQ and strategy is intertwined with the thrill of successfully annihilating powerful enemies and stealing chickens with a small amount of effort. This feeling is very addictive. Some people may have tried it twice. I can't stop feeling this way. Xiaopingan didn't want to stop, but the scene in front of him indicated that he could continue to play this trick. Xiaopingan was not in a hurry to go out. He was waiting. He felt that he should have another chance to pick up a bargain. The old man was so fierce. He shouldn't have just severely injured the two of them and then suddenly slumped. Judging from the old man's appearance, he should be still. It's not time to look back. On the other side of the battle, after two people were injured by the old man with the strange artifact in his hand, the remaining 5 people suddenly changed their strategies. All 5 people increased the distance between them and the old man, and each one was in front of them. The old man was 70 or 80 kilometers away, using the combat skills of combining magic and martial arts to grind the old man bit by bit in a will battle. Because those people discovered that when the old man used the magic weapon in his hand, the power of the electric light when the old man's hammer hit the chisel would weaken as long as the distance was further away. Their holy weapon armor, coupled with their combined magic and martial arts combat skills, can minimize the power of the lightning bombardment on them. Although it is uncomfortable and will cause some damage, it is still within their reach. Within the tolerance range. On the other hand, after hitting the old man a few times, the eldest of the 7 people found that the old man's aura was a little unstable. It seemed that using the artifact was very draining of divine power. This was also the case with the artifact. The reason why it is an artifact is that it cannot be played by ordinary demigods. If you want to use the artifact, you will definitely consume a lot of divine power and energy. Suddenly, in the sky of the underground space, water and fire were stuck together, forming a strange scene. Amidst the rumbling thunder, circles of flames came from all directions, trapping the old man in the middle. The old man could only rely on the artifact in hand to support the situation. Everyone, be careful that this old man is playing tricks. He is deliberately showing weakness to lure us into taking the bait. If we just grind him to death, he will definitely not be able to hold on for long. The boss of the 7 waved his hand and once again transformed into thousands of rockets and shot at the old man, while reminding others to be cautious. It is estimated that the old man was really playing a trick of showing weakness to the enemy to lure people into taking the bait. When he saw that his trick was exposed and the other party did not fall for it, he just tried to grind himself to death bit by bit. The old man changed instantly. Strategy: I saw the old man roaring and throwing out a punch. The surging power of the 5 elements in his body more than doubled in an instant. The huge ice blue wave swept away from him in all directions, and suddenly he was the circle of flames surrounding him burst into flames. Then the old man's eyes turned red, he gritted his teeth, and hit the chisel again with a hammer. In the huge electric light that erupted like a volcano, his whole body merged into a spherical lightning. The spherical lightning exploded. A sound cut through the sky, just like jumping in space, breaking through several layers of blockades at once, instantly making the old man jump out of the encirclement, and appeared 1,000 meters behind a person. 1,000 meters, this distance, for a demigod-level expert, is like the distance that a fist can hit someone in the face. Seeing that the old man had such weird methods and secrets, those people changed their colors. "Old Chi, be careful!" Someone yelled. The distance was too close. The face of the man named Lao Chi changed. Just as he was about to escape, the hammer in the old man's hand hit the chisel again. Boom! A ray of crimson electric light directly hit the old seventh man's body. The hair and eyebrows on the old seventh man's head instantly vaporized and disappeared in the crimson electric light column. The whole person screamed, and his whole body was torn apart. 8 miserable wounds, vomiting blood, and being blasted hundreds of miles away. At the same time, when the old man severely injured the seventh old man, the old man among the seven also had a look on his face, a sharp look, and threw a black ball covered with blood-red stripes directly at the old man. The divine thunder of annihilation. The old man also screamed, and his eyes suddenly widened. When he saw the divine thunder being thrown towards him, without even thinking about it, he hit the chisel with the hammer, and another ball hit him. The electric light rushed towards the divine thunder, detonating the divine thunder in the distance. The ball exploded 50 miles away from the old man. The raging white light expanded rapidly in the air like a bubble, and then annihilated everything in the white light into slag. And the old man's whole figure was flying through the air under the cover of electric light. He was still touched by the rapidly expanding white light. Then the old man also vomited blood, his face was dark, and he was hit hard by the white light into the formation. In an instant, the formation was activated, and the old man was annihilated by countless swords and swords. A few seconds later, the gray-faced old man jumped out of the formation like his butt was on fire. His breath was really weakened, and his movements were not as agile as before. The robe on him completely turned into a beggar's outfit. The old man went crazy. He yelled, with a ferocious look on his face, "Why don't we just stop here? You put away the formation, I'll leave this place, and I'll leave it to you. I'm really getting into trouble. I'll hold the three of you back again. You guys should be careful about your boss. He just wants you to die, and in the end he comes to take advantage and swallow up the benefits of the ancient god's body." The old man's 2 words were both threatening and heart-wrenching, making the eldest of the 7 people's eyes turn green with anger. The other 3 people didn't know if they were affected by the old man's words. There was a hint of hesitation in their movements, and they were not as dedicated as before. At the same time, Xiaopingan had already rushed to the seriously injured old 7, holding a bottle of elixir in his hand, as if he had rushed to the rescue, and shouted, "Old 7, sincerely, are you okay?" Lao Chi was also seriously injured this time, but he was not dead yet. When he saw Xiaopingan rushing over, Lao Chi didn't think much, shook his head, and took the pill bottle from Xiaopingan's hand. Afterwards, just as he unscrewed the elixir bottle and was about to pour out the elixir, Xiaopingan came behind him and repeated his old trick, twisting Lao Chi's neck with one hand and twisting Lao Chi's neck with a click. At the same time, the iron fist with the demon subduing seal on the other hand hit his back again. Like the previous 2 people, Lao Chi had no room to struggle under such a fatal blow at such a close range. Lao Chi turned into ashes and everything on his body exploded again. 3. Xiaopingan said to himself, neatly put away the things that Lao Chi exploded, and then flew directly towards the battlefield without waiting any longer. On the battlefield at this moment, the two sides were confronting each other. The remaining 4 people had already thrown their weapons into submission. No one wanted to rush forward and fight the old man, including the boss. The boss was also a little timid at the moment. The old man was like a thorny dog. The Iron Turtle was so difficult to deal with and so cunning and ruthless that he didn't even kill the old man with the divine thunder of Nirvana he prepared. You know, releasing the divine thunder of Nirvana in this formation was a drill for the 7 brothers. Unexpectedly, the old man had escaped many classic tactics. He really didn't know if the old man had any other trump cards. Seeing the other party's hesitation, the old man took the time to breathe and read a book. He took out a bottle and quickly swallowed a bottle of medicine. Then, everyone saw Xiaoping'an flying from a distance and quickly flew towards the boss. The boss didn't doubt that he was there. Seeing Xiaoping'an flying over, he seemed to have recovered a lot of his fighting strength. The boss breathed a sigh of relief and asked, "How is the 7th man?" "Boss, I just found something." Xiaoping'an looked anxious, and as he spoke, he rushed to the boss's side and was already close to Qiji. "What?" The boss was stunned. "That's it?" In front of everyone, Xiaoping'an's punch hit the boss's head directly. This time, Xiaoping'an did not restrain the aura of combining magic and martial arts, so the power of the fist was even greater, and the surging power of the 5 elements was in under the urging of the demon subduing seal. It erupted like a volcano, shaking the space within 100 miles. With a loud bang, the old man and the remaining 3 people saw that their boss was completely destroyed by Xiaoping'an's fist, and was directly exploded by Xiaoping'an.